I began to think about, why does God allow trials in our lives? One morning, I got up and went out to do my morning jog, and I just felt terrible. And all of a sudden, the world just began to spin around and around and around, and I started vomiting and vomiting, and I couldn't stop. So my wife, called the ambulance, and they took me off to the hospital. And ultimately, the diagnosis was that I'd had a small stroke. But I was laying in bed, and anytime I opened my eyes, there was the world just spun around and around in front of me. And I had to come to the point of saying, this could be the rest of my life. I may, for the rest of my life, have to be in bed. I may have to have, I might not be able to open my eyes. And the question was, could I embrace a good God at a time where I was a part of significant impact in the lives of millions of people, that God would bring this to me? And could I thank Him? Could I rejoice in that? Could I embrace that the rest of my life might be just like this? And it was so difficult to come to the point of saying, yes, Lord, I choose to thank you for this. And if this is in your sovereign, loving will, this is what you have chosen to be the future of my life, I'm choosing to say thank you and to embrace that. From the time I was early as a Christian, I wanted God to take my life and mold me into whatever Jesus looks like in my body, in my life. And that one of the key tools for that, God, is trials. And I had never wanted that. I'd never understood that. To me, as long as I just walked by faith and trusted God, there might be some short-term kinds of things, but the reality was that God intentionally brings trials into our lives. And one of the things that God uses trials to do in our lives, in this building of character, is really to demonstrate that He is trustworthy. And living in Colorado, one of the things that you often see is these complex railroad trestles that were built from the floor of a canyon up hundreds and hundreds of feet. So I was told that the guy who was the engineer who had designed and oversee the building of the trestle would take a fully loaded locomotive to test it. And the whole idea of testing was really to demonstrate that it was trustworthy. And realize that that's part of what God was doing in our lives, is that as we experience the trials of living in a fallen world, and as we walk through those trials, as we are thankful, as we rejoice in those things, that the world around us looks and sees that we are supported by that God has built into our lives in a way that is trustworthy. And they can trust God in their lives because they've seen how God takes care of us. And He may allow circumstances to come into your life that seem to be unfair, seem to be bad, wrong, hurtful. You can't imagine that it makes any sense at all. But He knows what He's doing, and you can trust Him to be using that experience, not just in your life, but through your life.